That reminds me of a scene in a movie where the movie is called Zero Effect, and Bill Pullman's character is supposed to pretend to be a tax guy, but he knows nothing about taxes. So someone asks him, what's the Corrodium 3 deduction, which I'm pretty sure is not a real deduction. And he just is like, yeah, I think that has to do with corrodium and other toxic substances, malgorium. He's just like, just totally pulling shit out of his ass.
Nice.
Yes, that deduction.
Malgorium makes me think of like an evil Al Gore.
Malgorium?
Yes. Like when you have like those like bizarro worlds, like in Star Trek, where Spock just had like a mustache. Like,
and that's how you knew he was evil.
Right. But I think of that where there's like a Malgore to go along with Al Gore, who like, I don't know, burns trash or something. I'm not really sure what anti-Al Gore does.
Takes lots of private jets.
Destroys the internet. I'm not sure. Anti-Al Gore things.
I'm trying to remember if Al Gore has facial hair right now, because I feel like the inverse would be that he wouldn't have facial hair.
Right? I
don't think he does. So I would say definitely goatee.
I'm also going to be really honest and admit that at this moment in time, I do not think I could pick Al Gore out of the lineup. Talk to me 10 years ago, absolutely. I could probably pick out like his Hitchcockian shadow from a wall. But now, no, I have no idea.
And that's how Mal Gore would get the drop on you.
That is absolutely how Mal Gore would get the drop on me.
Somewhere in the middle of Arizona, you painted a desert and called it my home.
Welcome to Spoiler Peace Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. I'm editor for The Independent. I'm co-chair at BAFCA and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yeah, you are. I'm Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and film critic, editor of Bitchflix, and a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
And Dave is on vacation for week 3.
He sure is.
Don't worry, folks. He'll be back next week. But we have a really fun guest star.
That's exactly what you would say if he wasn't coming back. I saw Riverdale last week. I know how this goes.
Uh-oh. We're busted.
Cat's out of the bag.
But in the meantime, I'm Kristen Halbert, and I'm a contributing writer for Forces of Geek, and I am happy to be here and hope that nothing happens to me, please.
Hope that nothing happens to you. What do you mean?
I haven't seen Dave. I haven't heard from him in a very long time.
Do you think we're hiding him like
I don't
in our
know,
basement?
you two have a very good rapport.
We're a little too chummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got David. Yeah, he's in the basement. I don't know. Is there even a basement here?
There is a basement, yes.
He's in the basement reading the Tomb Raider script.
Side by side. Seeing which one is worse.
This little callback to our Patreon segment this week where we talked about Tomb Raider.
Yes. Video game movies. Woohoo.
Yeah, which will set up a conversation we're about to have in a moment. But first, this week's show, we are going to be talking about PAX East, which Kristen and I attended last week. We're going to talk about Onward, the new Pixar movie. New Pixar movie. We're going to be talking about The Lodge. It's a horror movie that Neon put out recently. And The Way Back, which we just came from tonight.
Yep. Fresh off the runway.
Fresh off the Ben Affleck sports movie.
Yeah, fresh off the screen.
But first, let's talk about PAX East. Yeah, and Kristen, you were there covering it, right?
Yes, so I was there covering it for Horses of Geek, and it is one of the largest video game conferences in the country, and definitely the largest one here on the East Coast. But in addition to a bevy of titles to play on the floor, what I really enjoy doing is going to the panels, especially when they happen to have film-related panels, and I'm just like, double points.
I know. And I was there at PAX just for one day for fun. I know. Kristen texted me asking if I was going to be at the media thing, and I was like, no, believe it or not, I'm actually here for fun.
For
I know.
funsies.
Who does that? Who goes to things for fun?
Silly people.
But it was a lot of fun going to PAX and getting to walk the floor and just seeing games, not touching them. Thank you, coronavirus. I looked at a lot of
So
games
cruel.
that looked really fun, and I wrote names down so I could play them in the comfort of my home.
That's probably the safest choice.
But I did go to some panels, and Kristen and I met up and went to a video game to movie panel, which was
Ooh, I can't wait to hear about this.
top 10 video games we'd like to see as movies. Which totally sounds like the title of some like IGN video. Like I
Oh,
could
it
totally
does.
picture
It
like the
does.
guy
It
being like,
sounds so clickbaity.
I
Top 10
know.
video games.
I feel like BuzzFeed is going to come out with this listicle like next week, honestly.
They probably already have.
Well, I'm hoping they chose better movies.
Oh.
Yes. Complete shots fired.
Oh, burn. I love
was
it.
So disappointed. And the thing is that we've had video games for so long now, and we have seen some amazing stories come through video games.
Oh, yes.
That to have just the exact same kind of single person shooters or 2D scrollers end up on a cinema screen is just it's insane to me. It's really crazy. How many Assassin's Creeds do I need? How many Street Fighter
Zero.
movies do I need?
0.
Like
Yeah. And it was funny too because when we were talking about what to talk about on Patreon this week, I was just listing off all of the video game movies I had
Yeah,
seen.
you had
And
like 10 movies easily.
And I didn't even list. I said and more because
Right.
there were more, and I was just like, I don't feel like writing every single. I'm like, damn, I've seen a lot of video game movies,
Yeah, you
but
have.
most of them are so bad. Which
Yeah, they're
Oh.
terrible.
so it makes sense to have this kind of panel because you want to talk about movies that are video games that should be movies that should be good movies because there are many bad movies, but.
Mhm.
so many bad
Yes,
movies.
so many bad movies. But basically, the way they ran this panel was it was hosted by a local podcast called Pass the Controller, and they had a couple of other folks on the panel too, and they basically just did like a Google Doc and had the people on the panel just like argue about movies and just started like listing them in a 10
What?
format.
Oh, God, this sounds like a mess.
It was quite a mess.
So I'm dying to know what some of the films are that they said.
Oh,
Mhm.
I have.
Kristen, you're ready. I
Um,
love it.
Yes.
Mhm.
I see. That's the thing. Also, is if you go to a video game conference to ask what should be made into movies, there's a term AAA games, and those are the games that have like the most money
Yep.
and energy behind them.
Yep.
Those are usually the movies that get made are usually the games that get made into movies. But if you're at a video game convention, you are going to get some in the cut like things
Oh yeah.
that people are not going to want to see on the big screen. But I will give you I will at least start off with the one that I thought was an inspired choice.
Oh,
Which was,
okay.
how much do I want to see a 1 hour and 40-minute version of SSX Tricky on
No.
the big screen?
Yeah.
Wait, is this the best option?
In
It
my
was-
brain, I think of it as being like a Disney movie and like very close to Johnny Tsunami.
Ooh,
But
okay.
yeah, right.
Or
Okay,
Brink.
okay,
Right. Or Brink.
Brink.
Right.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
Right. There is that period. and
Sure.
I could kind of go back to it a little bit. Like, I feel like I think of like Shaun White being in it or something. So I also feel like this movie should have been, if this movie had a chance to be made, it was like 12 years ago. We missed it, and
Well, yeah.
now we can't.
Well, and
now
the-
it's dead.
and the panelist who suggested her name is Lily Zaldivar, and I feel like she had the most interesting kind of thoughts and well defended opinions because she was like, okay, hear me out. Like, I see Justin Lin is going to make this movie. It's going to have
Okay,
Charlize
I'm in.
Theron.
Oh,
and-
I'm in.
and
I'm
Aaron-
in.
And Aaron Paul's going to be in it too. Like,
Oh, I'm in. Doubly
yeah,
in.
yeah. So like she
Triply
made
in.
she made a compelling case for the movies that were on her list, and I feel like of anyone on the panel, she did the best job of like coming up with inspired choices and having good rationale or good arguments as to why this should be a movie.
I love that your entire compelling case for this never actually talked about the plot.
I mean, plot schmott. Who cares? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, plot schmuts, video game.
I know, right? The plot's probably going to be terrible.
We also had people saying like Metroid. Megan's making.
I know, I'm
face.
making a face. I realize you can't see because there's no video, but yeah, I'm making a face.
Of course, Legend of Zelda. You have to. I mean, I think that people have been dying to see a Legend of Zelda movie, but I think that it's one of those things that there's just no way to do a good one.
Yeah.
There's impossible.
Unless you do like Breath of the Wild. I mean, you could do that.
Although someone did suggest doing Majora's Mask as like a stop motion horror kind
Oh,
of style of
okay.
like
There,
that's
yes, that
in.
was
That's in. Okay,
of, like,
that's amazing.
Paranorman style,
Yep,
basically.
that's
I think
amazing.
that one came in as number 3.
That sounds great.
It was under Earthbound and Metroid.
I mean, so Earthbound is one of my absolute all-time favorite video games. So yeah, Earthbound is a classic. Not enough people know about it, especially if you're not like majorly into video games. But yeah, it's fantastic. I would definitely love to see an Earthbound film.
We also had BioShock, which
Oh,
I think
yeah.
would be very, very interesting.
Absolutely.
I mean, special effects at the wazoo.
Yep.
And No More Heroes, which I could kind of see it as this like kind of schlocky type of movie. I could see that.
Okay.
Yeah, so there were like a couple.
There were some
inside
interesting
there.
choices.
Yeah, none of those are like horrible train wreck choices, except maybe Metroid. I might.
Well,
be like,
I mean, then
Well,
there
the
were
list changed a lot.
Oh,
like, okay,
it
so
morphed. I see as like they're adding and.
oh no, the way it
no?
was is that
Oh.
they decided on 10 movies, and then they just set up a microphone
And let the audience
anyone in the
suggest.
room
No,
could just
stop
suggest
it.
and put it on the list
Oh,
wherever
this
they
is
felt
no.
it should be on the
Yeah,
list.
and everyone thinks they're
No.
a fucking comedian at this thing.
So I don't go to PAX and I've never been to PAX, but I've been to enough sci-fi, geek cons to
Right.
know everybody thinks they're an expert. Everybody thinks, yes, they're a comedian.
They're
Yes.
fucking funny as hell.
I will say
Correct.
though, I feel like while sitting in the audience being critics as we are, that Evan and I came up with the single best idea. Honestly, I mean, we couldn't agree. It's like this movie one of two ways. But I want to pitch this now.
Yes.
Because I feel
You have the floor.
Thank you. Now, picture this: Star Fox, but photorealistic.
Oh,
Lion King Jungle Book style. Obviously, this means that Jon Favreau has to dress Star Fox.
Yeah.
But imagine completely realistic Fox, Slippy, Falcon, all of them.
Yeah.
So I never played Star Fox, so I
Oh.
don't have an affinity for it. But I mean, when you said photorealistic, I was like, that sounds amazing. I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
in.
But you also had another really great spin on it. So Kristen was like, no, wait a minute. Let's back up a sec. Instead of live action, photorealistic, Jim Henson 80s Labyrinth style,
Like Dark Crystal.
Yes.
Oh my god.
it
Okay,
would
this
be
needs to happen.
fucking awesome.
Kristen, you need to pitch this immediately. What are you doing sitting here? Get to work.
There was like a real point where I have now said this like every single day. I don't think there's been a day since this weekend ended that I have not brought up the idea of this to somebody.
Yeah.
And I feel like every single person, I'm still 50-50. Everyone thinks that yes, Star Fox, one of the two ways. And I'm at 50-50 right now for people who are just like photorealistic. Let's go for it. A little terrifying, but it sounds great. And then the other people being like, this has to be Labyrinth Dark Crystal style.
Oh, totally.
But incredibly dark. And then
All
someone
practical effects. Like, this could be really awesome.
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of practical effects for that.
I think that's the route you need to go.
But then again, we also have like, we have built-in stories. Star Fox 2, they never released it. That's basically already written. Let's just use that one.
Sure.
Unless you got a mini SNES and past that level, you have no idea what's going on. So it's perfect. But yeah, so we were sitting in this panel and like really thinking about, I mean, I really do wish that there was a little bit more discussion about the fantastic narratives that are occurring in video games these days. I am a super Disney head, so obviously on constant rotation in my house is Kingdom
Hearts, yeah.
And like, if you just string all the cutscenes together, you're probably almost at an hour and 40, honestly.
Oh yeah, easily.
The only concern that we had was like the ridiculous amount of licensing that you would need.
Yeah.
It would be a rights nightmare.
It really, really would be.
I don't know. I'm seeing Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm on board with that.
but with keyblades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
we didn't talk about this at the panel, but I mean, I feel like it's so obvious, and I can't believe no one mentioned Metal Gear Solid because those games are basically movies in a game with
Right.
all their insane cutscenes and wackadoo stories.
All the stealth alone.
Wait, was that Was that ever seen screen time at all? Like as a television or cartoon?
No.
Or...
I don't
No.
think so.
No, it
You're
hasn't.
Right. That is a huge glaring error.
I know.
Like
And
somebody must be fighting over the rights for it or something.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way in hell like somebody hasn't wanted to make this as a film.
As a 3D movie, especially for the parts when the people have like the exclamation
yes.
points, like
The exclamation points are the best.
Yeah.
I loved those. I just can't believe. I mean, I cannot believe that no one said The Last of Us. Like, I cannot fucking believe no one said that.
did somebody say that? I'm just sorry.
They might have. I didn't take a picture every single time they added a new
I was like,
random television show.
I would have to be shocked. I mean, it is the game that like won every single award the year it came out. It is the most anticipated sequel, which comes out in less than 2 months. There's no way in hell. I would just be like absolutely shocked if no one mentioned
Okay,
it.
you know what? I think that someone might have said The Last of Us or Fallout because someone had.
Oh well,
mentioned-
Fallout's totally different.
No.
Totally different.
I don't.
I'm trying to think of games that had come out
But
in this
Fallout
very
as
long,
well.
confusing panel.
Like, yeah, I'm sure. But like Fallout would be great too. But like, I mean, The Last of Us is such an incredible, immersive cinematic experience. Like, I felt like I was in a film while playing it. And it is just gut wrenching and dark and beautiful. Like, oh my God. The Last of Us is amazing. It's my absolute hands down favorite video game of all time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Oh, I'm sorry. There was one other game movie that I did want to go over just because it's such. And I feel stupid saying this because I just made fun of people for the niche games that they brought up, and I'm going to bring up something that literally only existed. It existed first and almost exclusively on Dreamcast before.
Oh,
getting-
Dreamcast.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, all 15 people who know what this game is will be really excited. But I really wanted to see Zendaya as Ulala from Space Channel 5. And Space Channel 5, when I was younger, has to be one of my favorite video games in the world. It was one of the first like music rhythm video games that I ever played. And the basic premise is that you are a interstellar space reporter named Ulala, and there's a lot of like go-go music and go-go outfits for everybody.
I mean,
It's fantastic.
that sounds amazing.
And the Morolians have taken over, and they're making and the way that they're attacking people is they're making everyone dance uncontrollably. And you have to like beat them in dancing to like free the people from this dance curse.
All right.
Also, I should mention that it had some celebrity influence because Michael Jackson is in this video game and does his own voice.
Oh, I'm out.
And which
No,
means
I'm
it
out.
has to be recast.
Yes, 100%.
I'm thinking Bruno Mars.
Okay. That would work. Sure.
Like
He's
switching
great.
out Bruno Mars
He's
for
great.
Michael Jackson. We'll keep Zendaya, and if anything, she can just be new reporter on the scene, but maybe they don't want her to only cover like diversity things or something like that, and she wants to cover like the hard-hitting news of the galaxy and
Ooh.
sees this dance craze as not a dance craze but a threat. And I just had all these things in my head, and honestly, I just wanted to give everyone that graduated from the Disney Channel more jobs, obviously. If you
Nothing
weren't
wrong
cast
with
in
that.
if you weren't cast in a High School Musical spinoff, boy, do I have a video game movie for you.
Oh, so wait, I have another question. Did anyone mention Horizon Zero Dawn?
No, I don't think so.
What? Who are these people who are not mentioning these amazing narratives?
If I could have done a FaceTime or a Google Hangout with you,
Well, why didn't we?
if I knew that you would feel this strongly about it,
Oh,
would
I
have been
do.
there.
I do. I mean, like, I easily could come up with like a huge, massive list of games that should be made into movies. Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War, Inside.
Ooh, God of War.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Not the original, but the reboot. Anyway, there's just so many.
There's so many.
So many.
So many great RPGs that I played over the years.
Yes.
Like, did you guys ever play Dot Hack back in the day?
No.
Dot Hack was a story of like you play this online game and your friend who's been playing it like disappears.
I
and
do
you
know
have
this
to, like,
game.
jump
Yes.
inside the game and run around and like do all
Mhm.
the stuff, but you can like leave the game and have like your email outside of the game and stuff like
That's
that.
so
It was so
cool.
much fun.
That is so cool. But like Final Fantasy VII.
Mhm.
What's the other one? I can't remember now. There's
I don't know
another
if I would ever be happy with a Final Fantasy movie.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because I think about this and because like there's been talk about like I just went on and on about The Last of Us and there's been talk about like it's never going to live up to the the glory of the game because it's a different experience, but also like not with Final Fantasy VII because there's no voice acting, but with voice actors you associate them with those characters and yeah.
I do worry that the way that what we have the biggest problem with about video game movies is the same thing that we have with book adaptations, where you just have this incredibly passionate base that knows the story inside and out and is just truly connected with it. And whatever you put on the screen in this new format is just never going to actually fulfill what they actually want in their hearts.
Right. Well, the other thing I feel like too is that so often it seems like the filmmakers have no idea about the original source material.
Yeah.
Like it just never feels like it's someone who's actually a fan or who's actually read the book or who's actually played the game. And maybe it is, but it just never seems to translate.
No, I absolutely agree with you there, which is just a little bit sad.
Yeah. It's like if you just
I
ask
hope
some
Michael Bay
fans.
doesn't play video games, honestly.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that was one of the troll suggestions in the panel. Was
Oh,
one of
yes, I
mine.
remember that.
Said Minesweeper, directed by Michael
Oh
Bay.
my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. No.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably wrap up.
Yeah. I know. We could go on and on and
I
on. There's
know.
so many.
Yeah, we love video games. We could talk about them. If there are adaptations that you would suggest, listeners, we'd
Yes.
love to hear from you. Shoot us an email, tweet at us, what have you. Tell us movies that you would have liked to see.
Mhm.
Sorry, video games you would have liked to see turned into movies. We'd like to
Mhm.
hear from you.
I know. I'm like thinking of more now. Shadow of the Colossus. Anyway,
Hmm.
I digress.
Yes.
Keep going.
But other movies that came
Yes,
out.
let's get on to other movies.
Yes.
Movies that actually happened. Let's
Yes,
discuss
not
those.
our pretend movies.
Yes. Let's hear about Onward.
Yeah. So, I don't normally watch trailers. That's a thing that I've talked about before on the show. But I did actually happen to catch the teaser for Onward, and I was like, I have no desire to see this. I was not really interested at all. But I always love Pixar films, or I at least appreciate them. So when I saw this film surprised me in the best possible way because it was had so much more heart and sentimentality than I had initially expected going in. So this film is basically a fantasy film where there are characters that are elves and there are unicorns and there are mermaids, but magic has kind of fallen by the wayside
Mm-hmm.
and magic has gone away because of technology. So now all of these fantasy creatures are like living suburban lives that are pretty routine and normal. And the film centers on these two brothers whose father has died, and they find a staff from their father that's like this magic wand, and then there's like this spell, and they can bring back their father for 24 hours. But they mess up the spell, so only his bottom half comes back, which is really weird and really creepy.
I'm grimacing.
I know. Yeah, it's really creepy. And then they like dress up the top half, so it's very Weekend at Bernie's, and they like drag him around. It's very weird. I kind of am digging it though because it's so out there. So they mess up the spell, and then they have to go on a quest to find the other parts to fix this item that they need to put in the staff so they can finish the spell, so they can actually talk to their father for like one day, and they only get one shot, and then he's gone forever, and then they can never ever bring him back again. So the whole entire film is their quest, and the brothers have a great rapport. It's Tom Holland and Chris Pratt who are voicing them, and the older brother is like a metalhead, and he like loves his van with like a unicorn painted on it, and he's very like he has a great heart, but he's very reckless. And then Tom Holland is the younger brother, and he's very shy and nervous, and his older brother's always telling him, to try to get out there more and put himself out there. So they go on this quest, and then their mother goes after them, and she meets up with this woman who's a manticore, and they team up, and it's kind of amazing. And so there's all these like various components happening. And what I really loved about it was I was a huge D&D nerd many moons ago, and there are so many references to D&D. And the reason and the thing about this quest, the older brother is doing really well with the quest because he plays this game called it's something of yore, like Legends of Yore or something like that. That's clearly a nod to D&D. Like right in the early part of the film, like you see a DM screen, and I'm like, oh, he's playing D&D. And then there are also some creatures that are straight out of D&D. So it's just, it just made my little geek heart swoon. But it was great. And so, yeah. And then towards the end of the film really gets like so much more darker in a very sad way. And like finally, like they've had these wrong turns and they don't think that they're gonna finish. And the younger brother is mad at the older brother because of his recklessness. And he's like, you've wrecked everything. But then they, of course, reconcile. And then they finally do bring the father back to life. But they only have like a few minutes before the sun sets. And then it's over. The spell is gone. And the younger brother gives up his opportunity to talk to his father so the older brother can actually say goodbye. Because the older brother has like lamented throughout the film that he was never able to say goodbye to the father because he was like really, really little. But he does remember their dad. So it's like, so he's like watching through this like hole in a log, like seeing his father and his brother embrace. And the whole point of the film is that this whole time the younger brother has been like sad that he lost his dad, or that he never met him because he was only like 1 year old when his dad died. But he has his brother and he has this relationship with his brother that he hasn't cherished enough. And so it's all about being grateful for the family you have, which is just, it's very sweet and very sad. But it's also really sad because it's based on an actual story. Like Dan Scanlon, who co-wrote and directed this, he and his brother both lost their father when they were really, really little. And he didn't even remember his father. And then he came across this cassette tape with his dad's voice on it. And he was like talking to his mother on the phone, and he's like, I have to write this movie for Pixar. He's like, I want to write a movie, but nothing sad's happened to me because I feel like that's where all the great stories come from drama, like sad things. And his mother's like, well, your dad died. And he's like, oh, but I don't remember him. That's not sad. She's like, no, that's the sad part.
She's like, come on, this is Disney.
Right? Like, get it together.
There's
Come on.
dead parents left and right.
Right. But at least, I will say it's not a dead mother, which is
true.
a nice change. And the mother is very active.
2020 breaking the mold.
I know. Oh my God. Well, speaking of that, there's been so much hoopla over the first queer character in a Pixar film who's openly, queer. And I'm like, it's one side character who's on screen for like 3 minutes and she is in a relationship with another female character. And so she's a lesbian or bi or pan. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. I'm like, but she's not a main character. So who the fuck cares?
Is this the police officer?
Yeah, it's voiced by Lena Waithe. Yeah.
Okay, yes. Because I saw like some people were concerned that the queer character was also voiced by a woman of color, but it was also a police officer. So people were weighing whether they felt like it was truly a win or not in activist communities.
Yeah. Oh, it's not a win.
I
It's
was
not a
like,
win.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, I think any way you look at it, it's not a win.
I gotta say, I was not ever expecting Lena Waithe to
no.
voice a police officer.
No.
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 No. The director, Queen and Slim.
What?
I just think of Queen and Slim, and I'm just like, and then you went and you voiced a police officer in this movie. And I'm just like,
it makes no sense. Yeah,
what?
It really makes no sense. I don't know. It's very bizarre. Yeah, so it's not a win in that way, but it's a very sweet. It's like, aside from that, it's a very sweet story about family and about loss and how you move on from that. Yeah, everybody's great. Except for maybe the Lena Waithe cop part, which is just wrong and no. And it's also really awful too because like it's not like she's just like a cop like hanging out, like I don't know, I should be hanging out, but like no, it's at a stop. It's a traffic, like it's at a, like the van is being stopped. So it just it's like creepy and wrong and no, just all kinds of no.
Oh, can you illuminate me why I keep saying unicorns on eating trash on like all of these ads that I see for it?
So that's like a throwaway scene. It's in the very beginning of the film, but it's all about when it's being explained that magic has gone by the wayside. It shows two unicorns like eating trash. Yeah, to show how like
trashicorns.
Yeah. Trashicorns, I love it. Yeah, but to show how like unromantic things are now, that even unicorns, as beautiful and magical as they are, they're eating trash. So yeah, so it's a very sweet film.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. There was might have been something in the eye.
Little dirt in the
a
eye.
little dust, yeah.
Little dirt, little dust.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't take much for me to cry at a film.
Who really knows what it was?
Yeah, who knows?
Who's to say? Okay, so that makes it a very interesting transition to talking about The Lodge, a movie about children about siblings who are kind of shitheads.
Yeah.
And by kinda, I mean really. But in fairness, they're put in a really horrible situation by their father.
Are, and kids do shitty things, especially in these directors' films like Goodnight Mommy and The Lodge.
Oh my God, Goodnight Mommy.
If you haven't seen Goodnight Mommy, it is very disturbing and amazing.
I thought Goodnight Mommy was much better than this movie.
Oh, are we comparing?
Yeah.
I loved them both. This is one of my favorite films of the year so far. So
Damn.
I love them both for different reasons.
All right, well, let's start with a plot summary here.
Yes, we will.
Listen,
it's March, and I already have 6 favorite films. This year is kick-ass amazing for films. It's never too early to start.
Films.
For films, yes.
Yeah.
Films, yes. It's never too early to start your top 10 list. I always start mine very early.
So, this is the official Neon plot summary, by the way. A bone-chilling nightmare from the directors of Goodnight Mommy, The Lodge follows a family who retreat to their remote winter cabin over the holidays when the father, Richard Armitage, is forced to abruptly depart. He's not forced to abruptly depart.
Yeah, this is why you shouldn't even be reading this description. It's probably wrong.
He leaves his children, Aiden and Mia, in the care of his new girlfriend, Grace. Isolated alone, a blizzard traps them in the lodge as terrifying events summon specters from Grace's dark past.
Yeah, I mean, that's not entirely wrong.
No, it's not entirely wrong, but their father's a dick.
Sure.
He's a huge dick.
I didn't find him to be that much of a dick.
In the beginning of
Thought
the
he
movie,
was fine.
So in the beginning of the movie, he goes to his ex-wife, played by Alicia Silverstone,
Who's great, by the way.
Who's great.
In a very small role.
and he's like, what did he say? It was they're already separated, and he's like, I'm getting remarried. And then she's like, okay, here are the kids, and then she goes and kills herself.
Whoa. That's not quite. Not quite.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing 2 completely different faces here.
Yeah.
So
No, yeah, because he's like, for what I got from that scene was more like, we've been separated for a while. It's finally time to get a divorce. And then, by the way, I'm getting married. Or, which is a bit jarring. And then she runs out of the room and he does try to go after her, but she's already like taken off. Yes. And then she kills herself by taking out a gun, putting it in her mouth right as the cross is behind her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So much religious iconography in this film.
Oh,
so much. And the filmmakers have a Catholic background too, which I found really interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like it just happens so quickly too. She takes the gun out of her purse and just like immediately shoots herself. There's no like hesitation or anything.
No, it's very jarring.
Yeah, and then shit, I forgot where I was going with this.
so jarring.
Yeah.
You're so jarred you forgot
That
what you were
it
going to say.
stopped the recap.
Well, the father's so the father's a dick, and like the mom is dead, and like she has they have the funeral, and the kids are understandably traumatized, destroyed. And it's like Thanksgiving, and he's like, "Oh, I'm bringing my new girlfriend over. Hope that's just fine with you guys." And also, I'm going to tell you now, we're getting married. And also, guess what? For Christmas, we're going to our cabin, and you guys are going to stay there with her, and I'm going to go do work, and then I'll come back for Christmas. And how's that?
Yeah, it doesn't quite play out that way, but yes, in a nutshell, that is exactly what happens.
He's just like, he doesn't understand why what he's doing is a problem. Like, I'm like, how can you be so insensitive? Like,
well, I mean, very true. I will say, to be fair, though, there has been a lot of time that has lapsed from her death and the funeral to when.
Not that much.
Yeah.
Like, less than a year.
Yes, less than a year. I'm talking about it didn't happen like a week later. Like, mom's dead, and now I'm bringing the new girlfriend
happened like
in.
a couple of months, and he's like, "Here's my
It was
new
months
girlfriend.
later.
We're getting married, and by the way, she's here for Thanksgiving and Christmas. How about that?" Like, I feel like that's super insensitive and shitty.
I didn't say it wasn't shitty. I just don't think he's a dick. Yeah, no, he probably is a dick.
He's a dick. And
Yeah,
he's
he's
like,
fine.
I'm going to go
He's a
work.
dick.
And my new girlfriend, fiance, can stay and take care of my children. And they'll just sit there in a house in the woods with no fucking car all by themselves.
Yeah, that's fucking creepy. That is where he's a dick.
He takes the only car, and there's just nothing for miles.
Mhm. Right, and they can't even walk to town because it's so far away, and there's a blizzard, and they would die if they did. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm just mad at
I
mad
can
at the
see
dad.
that.
He is a dick.
This sounds like the worst version of Little House on the Prairie ever.
I mean, I guess.
Like, I just mean like the cabin with absolutely nothing to do and just sitting there with absolutely no transportation.
Oh,
and
yeah.
But yeah. So, but anyway, I mean, I found it riveting. And Evan, I know you feel differently. We talked about this off mic briefly, but like I found it riveting. I think Alicia Silverstone's amazing in this. Riley Keough is so goddamn good in this as the new girlfriend, Grace. And what's also kind of interesting is that you don't see her right away. Like there's a lot of talk of her. You see her silhouette through a window where like the daughter slams the door on her and her father when they're talking outside, but you don't actually see her for quite a bit of the film. And then you finally, and like even when she gets into the car with the kids, like you see the back of her head and then finally she turns around. Like, yeah, so there's definitely a lot of build up to her, and she's got such a complicated past in the fact that she's survived a cult. Like it was a death cult and they all committed suicide and she's the only one who survived, which is fascinating.
Yeah, and also what makes it creepier is that like the dad was working on like a book about the cult.
Yeah,
and
this is why he's a dick.
And that's how that's how he met
This is
her.
why he's a
And
dick.
he knows she's got a problematic past and still just like
bringing her around the kids.
Yeah, like I'm totally doing this anyway. And yeah, I mean the movie is very creepily shot. Like really good cinematography, really good use of camera angles to make like spaces feel really large and imposing and scary. Like hallways are scary. Like everything is just scary in this movie.
Everything.
Every space just feels so creepy, and there's times where it's like it's dark and like somebody's walking around in the dark and you're like, oh, what you could trip and fall over something. Like,
but also thinking about the spaces and the use of space, I really love how Alicia Silverstone's house and the father's houses, they're different, but they're very modern, they're very white, they're very like spacious. And then when they get to the lodge is like dark and cramped, and there's like gauzy curtains over the windows and like everything's dark paneling. Like, so it's such a stark contrast in the use of space and in the way the spaces look to kind of, you know, mark the difference. But the mother is forever strewn throughout the lodge because there's so much religious iconography. Like there's a portrait of Mary, the Virgin Mary, and then there's crosses, and there's so many that like she's just everywhere in the lodge.
And that's one of the things I found kind of disappointing about the movie. Like I liked the presence of the religious symbolism, but I didn't feel like it did anything all that interesting to me. Like,
I'm gonna disagree.
Because like the thing is like, so the kids hate this woman, right? And so they decide they're gonna fuck with her. And
wait, whoa! But first, we don't know that they're doing this.
Well, yes,
we don't know that they're fucking with her.
We don't know for a while that that's just what happens.
Right, actually right till the end, we
pretty
don't
much
know.
Yeah,
but I mean, you can't like you probably like suspected. I suspected. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. I was like, the kids are definitely the villains.
I was like, the kids are the shitheads. The kids, they're the villains. They're doing the shitty shit.
The kids are the villains,
right?
Because she
Sounds
wakes.
right.
She wakes up after a nap. They all kind of like wake up after a nap, and like all their stuff is gone. Like there's no food in the refrigerator. There's their coats, their clothes, everything gone, just disappeared. And so this starts like her. I don't want to say this is like the moment that she starts descending into madness, but this is definitely like the switch that like kicks it into overdrive.
Well, they also steal her meds too.
They steal her meds.
So she takes meds.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we don't know what she's taking meds for, but she's taking them, probably some kind of antidepressant, anxiety, something, who knows. But yeah, and so they've stolen, which is also highly problematic and ableist that we don't know what she has. But and such a trope in horror, unfortunately. But yeah, and so they take her meds, so she doesn't know. And then when she's asking, she thinks that they're playing a prank on her, and so she confronts them, and she's angry, understandably so. And they're like, "What are you talking about? We didn't do anything. You're the one who walks around and sleepwalks at night." So so they're constantly gaslighting her.
Yeah, and then they basically keep it going to the point where they make her think that we all died. Like basically because there was like a gas heater they turned on, and they're like, "Oh, we died from the gas heater. Look, here's like an obituary printed out of us, and like so you're dead, and so nothing here matters, and like what you got to do is like repent for your sins." And so that triggers her crazy like religious upbringing. So she like,
which was already going like.
Yeah. So and she
overboard.
snaps to the point where like there's a scene where she's put hot coals from the fire on the ground, and she keeps kneeling down into the hot coals and scalding herself.
Oh, but wait a minute. That comes after the son has hung himself, and he's like, "See, I'm still alive." So that means we're in purgatory and we're dead. And that's also after her dead dog.
Yeah. mother-in-law warning. Emma, you
Oh
cannot
my
see
god,
this movie.
it's so disturbing. It's so disturbing.
Okay, so you guys are arguing over the dad being a dick, but
No, he
barely-
is a dick.
He barely
is.
has like complete demon children too.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
yeah.
the children are horrible. They're awful.
God.
Yeah, the children. That's why when you said the dad's a dick, I'm like, really? I'm focused on the kids who are horrible, but no, yeah.
Well, just having an apple doesn't fall far from the tree
Clearly.
situation here.
Yeah, clearly.
Touche.
Yeah, but
Touche.
yeah, the hot coals are nuts, and
it's agonizing
oh
to
my
watch her
God.
because she gets down and she does it, and then she gets back up and then
and
just,
does
like,
it again. Yeah, and this is after like her face. Like at first, you think it's bloody. Oh no, it's frostbitten because she's been sitting outside with her dead dog.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's horrifying.
Wandering around in circles in the snow.
Oh my
like,
God.
She completely loses her mind.
It's so awful.
And it comes to kind of well, I don't know.
It's a bonkers climax.
It's a bonkers
but I think it
climax.
earns it quite
because
well.
what happens is like earlier in the movie they had this gun that the father shows her and it's like, here, you can. He doesn't explicitly say you can use it to defend yourself, but he's just like, here is a gun.
Oh, and she knows how to use it quite well.
And she knows how to use it. And so the father comes home and she's like, it full blown, like, lost her mind.
Like, we're all dead and we're in
Yeah.
purgatory.
And so she shoots and kills him. And so the children are still alive and they're there and she's holding them captive essentially.
Mhm.
And there's this whole bit about how the people in her cult, when they were found dead, they had duct tape over their mouths that said like sin on it. And so like the end of the film is like she's put the duct tape on the children's mouths and like the gun is just sitting on the table with the expectation that like, I don't know, either she's going to kill them, they're going to kill themselves.
Who
like,
knows?
who knows? That's just like where the movie ends.
Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah, so I want to back up to talk about the religious kind of iconography and symbols, and partly why I loved it so much. There's a couple reasons. And one, I didn't realize it the first time watching it. And it wasn't until I saw a screenshot and I was like, holy shit, how did I miss that? And I'd like to think I picked up on it subconsciously. But when she comes up to the children and is like telling them like we need to repent, and she's already like,
Yeah.
become unhinged, that shot, it has like a corona behind her and rays, and it's the exact replica of the Virgin Mary portrait. And I just love that. I was like, oh, and her name is Grace. I mean, obviously, but like, I was just like, oh, it's come full circle. And I read a really great interview with the two directors, and they were asked about the religion in the film. Like, are you anti-religion? There's a lot of religion in the film. And they're like, no, we're not. It's not really about religion. It's more about trauma, because the cult that she's from, is not a, normal religion. And it's all about how she's been traumatized and how she deals with that. And it, that thread of trauma and grief is clearly running through the film, like how the kids handle trauma, and clearly not well. They're not dealing with it well. And I also think it's really interesting that thinking about the dad as such an asshole, because both women in his life use phallic weapons. They both use guns. Like Alicia Silverstone kills herself with a gun, and then Riley Keough as Grace uses a gun to kill him. And so it's like coming full circle. Like, they're getting retaliation on the abusive, traumatic men in their lives, like the cult leader, and then the husband who, ditched his wife.
Right.
And, yeah. So.
And it's kind of creepy too, like the whole death cult thing, and like her being a survivor, because like the film kind of leaves it open to interpretation as to like why she might be alive and everyone else is dead. It's like,
because she was like videotaping them.
yeah, she was like videotaping, like walking around, like peeling back the blankets on people, and you're like, did she? Is like you're like, what happened here? I don't know. Like, has she always been like? Has she always been like this? Like, was did this just like reactivate something she's been suppressing this entire time? Did she just like murder a bunch of people before and now she's like restarting again? Like, it's
right, and you just don't know. Yeah. The other thing that I love visually in the film is the use of the dollhouse, which is
it's very Hereditary.
I was just gonna say it's very evocative of Hereditary, and in one of the interviews I read with the filmmakers, they both said they've been asked this a lot, or people have mentioned that it's very similar to Hereditary, and they're like, we wrote the script and started shooting before Hereditary even came out, so they're like, it's not paying homage to Hereditary at all, and they're like, but it is kind of funny how two separate films can have the same themes.
Right.
But it works so well because it's such like and the daughter carrying around her doll constantly and looking for her doll and where's my doll, and because dolls and dollhouses have such a connotation of childhood innocence but also of hyper femininity, and so these strains, the juxtaposition of the dolls in the dollhouse and also how they're also doing awful things, like they're in weird positions that look really painful, like if they were alive, and like there's a doll hanging, and so clearly so it's interesting because there are these awful images that you're seeing and you don't know really quite what you're seeing, but then at the end of the film when you're piecing all of it together, you're like, oh, it showed you everything. They were clearly practicing what they were going to do to gaslight Grace in the dollhouse, and so I loved that. Thought it was great visually.
It definitely had some strong points, but overall I felt like it was just long and slow and
yes, I loved that it was slow. Slow burn.
I dug the religious iconography, but for me it just didn't come together in a way that it didn't pay off for me.
Did you want it to make more of a statement, or
not necessarily? I just wanted it to feel more cohesive, and I just feel like we're tossing religious symbols at the wall and like seeing which ones will stick.
I think that's what most people do with religious symbols. Though.
Yes.
I don't think it's reserved for
Yeah,
the
I just
movie.
feel like in a way, like there were parts of the film where that aspect just felt so disconnected. Like when she's just wandering outside for what felt like forever to me. I'm like, all right, well, what happened to all the like religious stuff? That feels like it kind of took a backseat to this. Like, I'm wandering around in the woods.
See, I feel like wandering in the woods and in the wilderness is a highly religious symbol.
Also something else that we haven't mentioned is when she's wandering in the woods, she comes upon a house that's shaped like a cross. So it's everywhere. She can't get into, and the creepy cult leader is inside giving her creepy looks. So so I don't think religion ever goes away. I think it is omnipresent in this film, even if it's not overt. I think like Kristen, like you said, like wandering around feels very, very much like religiosity to me. So yeah, I think the film is much more like it is using religion, but I think it is much more about grief and trauma and pain and how we handle those things. My problem with the film, like I said, is, kind of the ableist nature of her mental illness that we don't really know, and unstable women. Like part of me is like, oh, that's always fascinating. But at the same time, it's like the two women in the film are both highly unstable. It's kind of, problematic. So I have issues with it, but I did love the film a lot. I thought it was weird, dark.
Yeah.
Creepy kids. I loved it.
I see why when Dee Dee came on the show a couple weeks ago that she did not spoiler piece it for
I
us.
love that she didn't.
Yeah,
I know we
understand
spoiled
why.
the shit out of it, but I'm glad that we got to go in having it
Cold.
having it not spoiled. Right. Yeah. I know. She loved the film, and I'm so glad that we got to see it. Even though we disagree.
Yes.
But that's okay. That's what
It
makes the
is
world go
okay.
round.
So then I guess we should wrap with
Yes.
the way back.
Oh, yes.
Yes. That's a tonal shift.
Yeah.
That's a significant... No, because still religiousness.
And grief and death. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, actually,
Hey.
actually, it's not so jarring.
Keeping on the road.
I was
Fits
really
nicely.
worried this was going to be a lot more. I was really worried this was going to be like Ben Affleck dipping his toes into like Kevin Sorbo territory, where it's like this is going to be like
like a Christian movie.
yeah.
God's Not Dead Part 3.
I was so worried. That's where this was going. Because I'm just like, he's at a Catholic school. He's like working with priests. Like everyone's wearing crosses. I'm like, oh God, is that going to be one of these movies? Like he's going to get over his alcohol addiction by finding God. Oh no.
I just chalked it up to he's Catholic and he's from Boston, so the Catholic follows him everywhere.
Yeah.
There we are.
I did think, I was like, are we in Malden right now?
That's
Like,
what I thought at first.
I know it was a warmer in a different place, but at the same time, I was like, this is so many gateway cities.
So many. I know. But I was like, the sun is way prettier and sunnier, and then we saw a palm tree. I'm like, okay, it's clearly not. Clearly not around here. But I did think that too.
Yeah. But I was worried for a minute. That's where the movie was going. And it didn't turn out to go that way, but
no. So we should probably do a synopsis of the film.
Yes.
Oh, are you going to read You gonna
I
read
mean,
it?
I don't have to. You can summarize if you like.
I was going to say the film is basically about a guy who is an alcoholic, and he is asked by his former high school, which is a Catholic high school, to become the basketball coach because he was a star basketball player, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the premise of the film is, and it is interesting because when I read about this film, I thought it was going to be about his recovery, and it's not. I mean, yes, that happens at the end of the film, but
much later in the
movie.
Right,
but no, it's really about his addiction and his alcoholism, and how it's, wrecking him and destroying his life. And
I wonder if he has any experience with that.
Okay. Oh my God. Evan.
Wow.
Just wow. If I had a penny to throw at you right now.
No, I mean this
poor Ben Affleck.
This
I
definitely
think
feels
that's
personal.
actually and that actually took me out of it several times. I felt very uncomfortable because of knowing Ben Affleck's actual personal life and problems. There were some periods where I was just like, this is weirdly awkward, where I think that I might be watching a little tiny piece of a Ben Affleck documentary rather than watching him in a movie.
I see
and
what you mean.
it just made me feel a bit uncomfortable sometimes.
And see, that's what I loved about it. I thought it was great because kind of that's how I felt watching Star is Born and Bradley Cooper, because Bradley Cooper is also a recovering alcoholic, and watching him, and I was like, oh, and he's gone through these same things. So for me, it is awkward and it is uncomfortable, but I was like, oh, he's lending so much insight into this role because of his personal experience, and not that you have to personally go through it, but it certainly adds another layer of depth and nuance when you do go through it, because it is such a very specific type of experience that if you haven't gone through it, or if you don't know anybody who's gone through it, you kind of can't quite understand. So I loved that it was awkward and uncomfortable, but I also happen to love awkward and uncomfortable. So take that.
There we go.
So take that for what it is.
Yeah, watching him knock back all those beers, it was.
In that rhythmic montage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was.
Anytime he cracked open a beer, really just made me feel uncomfortable, especially because there was lots of awkward laughter from the audience. People were laughing.
That was disturbing, and I'm like, this is not a comedy. This is not fucking funny.
No, this is someone's real addiction and problem. And what I think is kind of interesting, for better or worse, about the film is that he has this is an addiction, and you see it play out throughout the film, and not that there necessarily is always a reason that kind of triggered it, but it's just in this case they wait till very late in the movie to drop the bomb that his son died.
Yeah.
And his son's death set him on this course of depression, which he had other problems before. They talk about how he had a drug problem before, but that this really kind of set things in motion that completely tore his life apart and tore his life down. And I just think it's weird that they, for better or worse, that they dropped that bomb so late in the movie.
Yeah.
It just feels wow, okay, that seems like something that would be kind of important to know about the character. And now here it is, oh my God, he's separated from his wife and they lost a child, and that just ruined him.
Yeah, that is kind of interesting. I do wonder if the reason they chose to do that was to kind of show the universality of addiction, and you don't need a reason. You don't have to have a reason because you don't. So, but it is it is kind of an interesting melodramatic choice to wait till the very end to reveal that.
I just think it's just how long they waited without giving any clues or any hints or anything, and in fact setting us up for disbelief by him telling telling the priest that he doesn't have any children so early in the movie. So when we actually got to the point where we find out that he not only had a child but also lost them, I was like, wait, what the fuck? I would have wanted a hint, seeing just a random kid's photo in the apartment, or someone else bringing it, just anything, because I felt completely blindsided. Where the fuck did that part of the script come from? Honestly.
Yeah, and he keeps getting those phone messages about so and so's birthday, and I just assumed for the most part that was just some other adult friend, not adult friends who have a child whose birthday it is that they're inviting to them to, and he's avoiding it because of that.
I mean, I do also wonder if, because he's been avoiding everything, I wonder if that was a choice in the film to, because he's avoiding it, so we're going along for the ride for him avoiding it, so the film is avoiding it. Like I'm kind of curious what the logic is as to why that choice was made, because you can go either way to like why you would do that. But yeah, anyway, but like and I think that might be the reason they did that. Well, and I'm thinking that only because like in the musical score, when I've noticed this a lot, like whenever he was getting like having a lot of stress or getting anxious or something like that, the score would like pick up, and not that this is like, it's not like unusual, but the score would like pick up and get really quickly paced in its piano score. But then as soon as he would like crack a beer and have a drink, it would like get very quiet and very calm, as if it was numbing him. And so yeah, so I wonder if it was trying to put us in his headspace, or in like, he's so numb and cut off and isolated from everything that he doesn't even think about his kid. And so of course he's going to tell that guy, no, I don't have children. And of course we're not going to see any remnants or have any hints or any clues. And I don't know if I'm not entirely sure if it works or doesn't work, but it seems like it's an intentional choice. But but it also feels like, was it done for manipulative purposes? Like I don't know.
Almost feels like a late in the movie apology for this behavior. It's like, oh well, he lost a child, so like don't go too hard on him.
That's a great point. And like I think it would have probably been a braver choice to not have him go through something awful. It's just like, nope, he's an addict. He is dealing with addiction and alcoholism, and that's it. And this is what people go through. Like, he doesn't have to have anything traumatic or terrible happen.
And the reason I say that is because I felt like it was kind of manipulative, because when you get to the point where he's fired from his coaching job because he's been drinking, like, for me as the viewer, I felt a sympathy for him, and that like, oh my God, this guy's been through enough. Like, can't you just give him like one more chance? Like, he's done such a great job with the team. Like, how, like this is going to ruin him. Like, he's already teetering on the edge. Like, can't you just like cut him a break? And like, I sat there thinking that. I'm like, wait a minute, this is entirely wrong. Like, he needs to face the consequences. He has been drinking around these kids and setting like a bad example for them. And like, he can't be doing that. And so he has to face the consequences.
How long has he been drinking around these kids? Because there's a good long stretch
where he's not drinking at all.
Where he's not drinking at all, and he's handling everything, and then he has this horrible falling off the wagon, like emotional moment, and he slips terribly, and he comes in, and obviously it's the day after Bender, and he's late to practice, and it doesn't seem like he like showers or anything. He just goes there still reeking of the alcohol the night before, and that's what gets him kicked off. But like, I feel like they had a couple of games where yes, he was going out drinking every night, but I don't remember, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not remember a part where he like is putting alcohol in a cup and like going out to coach them, or at the game drinking anything.
I don't remember that. There is a passing conversation with the assistant coach played by Al Madrigal, about beers in the office, but empty beer cans, I think he says.
Yeah.
Like, I found some empty beer cans in the office.
But that to me, knowing, people in my past who've been in recovery, or before they got into recovery, rather too, I didn't ever get the impression he stopped drinking. I just got the impression he cut back. He wasn't going to the bar. He wasn't like doing benders, but I never got the full impression that he had stopped, because that's not usually what happens especially when someone who's a functioning alcoholic, they, are able to do things. They're able to go to their job. They're able to get through the day to day, but they don't actually stop. So I didn't get that impression that he had stopped. So I just got the impression he was still probably drinking at the office, just not like an excessive amount. I also got the very distinct feeling that he was driving under the influence. Again, not like to excess, but while he was driving that kid home. Like, that there were probably instances where he had had at least one or two beers and he was driving the kid home. And there's nothing in the film that says that. Yeah. That's just kind of what I picked up or got. Yeah. My interpretation. But yeah, so... but it is that's a hard scene, like, when, because you are rooting for him, like, where you're like, no, give him another chance, he's done so well, he's like, trying
he's
so
really
hard.
On the edge here, and like, wait, with the decision you make can push him one way or the other,
right? Right.
Yeah. But because he hasn't shared literally anything with them, like,
Right.
what other chance do you need? Like, what is he
Right.
going to say? I had a situation that brought up my memories of my dead child that I also told you I didn't have any children 3 months ago.
Right.
But, and I'm drunk right now, but please believe me.
Right. Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
What you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. But that scene felt really authentic, like in the sense of bargaining, like that. Yeah, it just it just kind of hit hard.
It did. And I also feel like there was so much attention on the alcoholism.
Yeah.
I do want to go back to the whole when he's driving the kid home and he's talking about the problems that he had and saying that he had gotten into drugs.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, why are we even adding drugs into this? Like, you could have just stayed with alcoholism. And I felt like saying I got into drugs was just like such a fucking throwaway to be like, here are these other things that I did. And I'm just like, if there was nothing else in there to talk about the drug problems or how it had led to this, or I really wanted to know a little bit more about like how he had completely gotten to this point.
Mhm.
And in my brain, I was already just like, okay, well, they've mentioned drugs. And then I was waiting for anything else to come up about that exact period in his life, and it didn't, but it was holding in the back of my brain for the rest of the movie, and I really kind of needed that space for like actually watching the movie. And I'm just like, damn it, why couldn't you just said that that's when you started like really heavily drinking, and then we would just have this wrapped up so much tighter than using drugs instead of alcohol, and just like continuing that particular thread.
See, that's so interesting.
I
like,
know it's a slippery slope, but I was like, why are we starting the slope there?
But it is interesting because I kind of feel a couple things about what you said, which is such a great point. Like, it would have been really interesting if like his sister had been like, you know, this is like when you were struggling with drugs or something like that, if she'd mentioned that towards the end of the film. But I also, in a way, am kind of glad we don't get more exploration on the the drug addiction, because again, everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, shouldn't generalize, but there are people who often will have like a drug of choice or, you know, alcohol of choice. But a lot of times it's not the actual substance. It's like you can be addicted to like anything.
It's the addictive behavior.
Correct.
So it's like if someone stops doing drugs, then they're addicted to alcohol or gambling or whatever.
Right, exactly. If they stop that, they'll just go on to something else until they actually deal with it in a recovery program. So like for me, like, so when I heard it, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, drugs. Of course he was into drugs.
And my wife pulled me out of it, and that's how I got to be stable for a little while before this horrible thing happened. And I just absolutely relapsed.
Right. And that's what, and it, so for me, it completely made sense, because I'm like, oh, you didn't go to rehab. You didn't, you know, go to AA. You didn't get into a recovery program. So I'm like, of course you relapsed and went, you know, started drinking heavily. Like, it makes perfect sense. Like, yeah. Cause I was like, you didn't deal with your underlying issues that you needed to. So yeah. So, oh, that's so fascinating. I'm so glad you mentioned that.
There are so many ways to take it.
Right.
And I feel like this movie gave us, because of its lack of filling some things in, it just gave us so many opportunities to just like think about how we could fill it all in.
Right.
Like, where was it? Maybe he did drugs, and then like that was led to the divorce, and he decided that alcohol was a more acceptable and an easier thing to get around and to hide, and like all of this is going through my brain, and I'm just like, oh shit, we're in the next scene.
But I really liked this film because I liked that it didn't hold your hand, and that there were a lot of blank spaces and a lot of room to breathe where you could interpret. Like, I really liked that. I don't know, but I don't know.
I kind of just love that he didn't get to go to the last game.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
I was like, I am proud of you for not letting this man come back.
Exactly.
And for making him figure this out.
Right. Because you don't always get to come back. You don't always get to you know, have your happy ending, you know, but this is, you can't get that ending, but you can go over here, you know. And I do kind of love that the team gave him like a nice little shout, you know, like, you know, let's win this fucking game for Coach Cunningham. Like, I liked that. Like, that was the nice little, you know, resolution. Like, he clearly impacted their lives. He clearly made a difference and inspired them, but he doesn't get to be there because of his behavior and choices.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what facilitates him hitting rock bottom and then
Right.
like eventually,
Right.
you know, going on to recovery, because like he gets drunk and accidentally wanders into someone's house.
Oh
and
my God.
falls and hits
That's
his
a
head.
great scene, by the way.
Yeah, it is great.
Yeah.
after drunkenly driving into a boat and then
I know, and it's
fleeing
funny.
the scene.
I kind of feel like in another film, it would have just been hitting the boat, and that would have been where it stopped. And I
Yeah.
love that this keeps going. It's like, no, we're going to make this even more awful and more awkward and more uncomfortable.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
leaning into this. And
Yeah.
I love that.
For a movie that was an hour and 40 or so minutes, this felt very long to me. Like,
Yeah, it did to me too, actually.
Like,
I
Even though I liked it.
I felt like it kept going, and I'm just like, we're still going with this story. Like, I feel like we needed to go. Like, what if this was going to be a sports movie? It should have been about the team and the season or whatever.
But
If
it's
this was-
not.
if
It's clearly
right,
not.
If it's a
Yeah.
movie about his addiction, like, let's stick more to that because
Right?
for me, it was straddling this line,
Mhm.
and I'm
It
like,
did, yeah.
I don't love this as a sports movie. I don't think it's particularly good. Like, there's no great like scenes. Like, it's not really exciting from a sports perspective. Like, there's a lot
No.
of fun scenes of him yelling at people and swearing when the Catholic
Yeah,
people
those
are
are
like,
great.
like the-
Those are great.
like
Those
the
are
team
definitely some of my
chaplain is
favorite.
like, oh
Yeah.
God, please stop saying God damn it every other word.
The chaplain, the guy who plays the chaplain, his face is priceless.
Yeah.
His expressions of horror every time Ben Affleck goes on a,
Mhm.
F-bomb tirade. It's great.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, I'm not surprised at that. I have a friend who was a team chaplain for Holy Cross.
Oh.
And definitely, like, so when I saw it, I was like, oh, plot point that I know.
I love that.
But yeah, that is definitely a big part of it. It's
Yeah.
like monitoring the language
Yeah.
and the play. And I love that in prayer where he's like, let's not focus on winning, but on playing well and being nice. And like the other team members are like, no.
Right? Yeah.
Just carrying that through to the end.
Yeah. That
But
took me back.
Evan, do you feel like you would have approached this differently or felt differently set up about it if it had started off with like a title card that said something like based on a true story? Because it felt very much to me like a based on a true story movie.
Possibly. I don't know. It's weird to me that this movie is directed by the same person who did Miracle, which I think is a really great sports movie. And I'm just like, I'm okay with and also The Accountant, which another very different Ben Affleck movie. Like, and I'm okay with like if it goes one way or the other. It's like if it's just on the trauma and the addiction, or if it's just the addiction. But like mixing the sports element in it to me just doesn't work, especially because I feel like it's not good sports movie.
Yeah.
It's not like riveting. It's not exciting. Like I'm not like just glued to the screen and I need to know what's going to happen
Right.
with the team because that's
Yeah, I can't
not
actually
really-
tell you a name of any of those kids right
Yeah,
now.
no, I can't either. And I think that is kind of a problem, is that there's not really any attention paid for character development on the kids. There's we don't really get any camaraderie with the kids and with, Ben Affleck's character, Jack. Like, so I think that it suffers in that way, especially, so it's definitely not a good sports movie.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I was like, oh, it's very clear this is not a sports movie. This is clearly an addiction film. This is clearly about his addiction. But I would argue we need to see his interaction with the kids to see what he's gained and then what he loses in order to hit rock bottom, in order to have
Right.
this journey of, recovery and struggle and all of that. So I think we need that. But I do wish that they had integrated it a little bit better and we'd gotten some more interaction. Because every time I was watching it, not that it's the same sport, but I just kept thinking, where's Coach Taylor? I want Coach Taylor's inspirational speeches.
Right.
Yeah, Friday
Yeah,
Night
and I
Lights
kept-
forever.
I kept thinking he was going to give some really amazing inspirational speech to them.
Yeah.
The way he had been kind of hyping them up all
Right.
season, getting them to play so much better. And then that moment just never came.
No, but I also kind of like that too in a weird way. Like, I feel very torn because like I wanted it, I kept expecting it, but I love that it never happens. Like, I kind of love that it subverts the expectation in that way.
I also did too. There was at no point did he seem like a great inspirational speech character.
No.
Like I would have been
No.
like, oh, did we just like switch writers for like 15 minutes? Okay.
Yes. Very much. And that's why, like, we haven't actually really talked about this yet, but I think Ben Affleck's performance in this is tremendous. I think he is so committed to this role. I mean, clearly, we talked about like how he obviously has his own personal demons and personal experiences that he infused into this, but I think he is just putting it all out there and laying it all out on the floor. And I loved it. I thought his performance was just fantastic.
I am super not. I'm not a huge Ben Affleck fan.
No, neither am I.
But I have the same experience as you. Where
Yes,
I
love
I truly, really, I just love his performance in
Yes.
this movie. And the whole time I was sitting there, I'm just like, oh my god, I'm gonna like really love this Ben Affleck movie. I have to like defend this. I have to defend this Ben Affleck movie because it's really great. It's like one of the best performances I've seen him do in a while.
So
and
good.
It's just it's wild that he's don't. And I do think it is just that really, really personal part that makes me slightly uncomfortable, but also makes me super engaged in the movie.
He's just riveting on screen. And I don't think I liked him in Gone Girl, but I cannot say I've ever found him riveting on screen in anything. And I was just mesmerized by him. Like, so good. And
Evan, are
everything
you
said,
sharing this Ben
I
Affleck
echo.
love? We're just
He's all right.
wondering.
Oh!
I've always felt like Ben Affleck is a much better director than he is an actor. And I think he's good in this. I don't know if I would say he's great in it. I feel like, I don't know.
I'm kind of shocked, I have to say.
It feels very personal, so that does come through. But I feel like for the most part, his character is just kind of like, to me, for much of it, he feels just kind of like blah. Like, he's just kind of like, eh.
I am shocked.
Yeah.
I am
You
very
can see
shocked.
Megan's eyes popping out.
I know, they're bugging out. I don't even know. I found him so, I found it so interesting, but also I felt like he is this character. And I don't just mean like, oh, this is his experiences, but like, I just felt like the mannerisms and the way he spoke and just kind of like his cadence, like in body language, just everything. I was like, oh, he is this character. And it just really worked for me, but clearly not for you, Evan. I'm sorry.
You can't win them all.
That's true. That's true. I wonder if it really was the fact that it was the miracle director that was setting you up for failure, because this is not a sports movie.
No.
But I
not
feel
at
like
all.
anyone who's expecting a sports movie, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
So disappointed.
Like,
Yeah.
this is not the movie you think it is.
I'll tell you, though, it did make me want to pick up a basketball, which I have not done in a very long time.
Oh, maybe it is a great sports movie then. Maybe I recant it all.
I mean, it was just, like seeing someone who's passionate about sports and like getting involved and like kind of rekindling that passion, like when he's talking about how he hasn't touched a basketball really in years, and then when he's like in rehab and he's like, okay, now I'm taking the time and I'm going to go and just play and have fun with the game again. Like, to me, that was kind of what I was responding to. Was like, I played basketball growing up until like middle school, but like, at the end of middle school, like, I'm not tall. Like, that was never basketball was never going to be my future. And just
Point
like,
guard.
yeah, not tall and not that good.
The second part's probably more important to
Yeah.
basketball.
Yeah, no, it's just, I don't know. It's something about it. It was like, well, he's having fun with it, and maybe there is a possibility that I could have fun even if I just go out and like shoot hoops or something. Like,
Aww.
Yeah, I mean, he
I like
shot hoops
that.
at the end, and he said he had not touched a basketball in so many years.
yeah, so I responded positively to that aspect
There
of
you
the movie.
go.
If I
Aw.
see you like this weekend go out to a court here and like just shoot basketballs in the sunset as well, just to recreate the shot.
Yeah,
Have like a photo of the beach.
In the 40-degree weather.
Right? In this cold, awful
Mhm.
Boston weather.
Sounds right. Sounds about right. I do have to say that I just the second half of the movie, like when they finished and they beat the top seeded team after losing to the other one.
after they lose
like-
to Shooter McGavin.
Yeah.
No,
I
not
was
Shooter
done.
McGavin. He's the asshole guy from Wedding Singer.
He's
mixing them
Glenn
up.
Guglia.
Yeah.
There we go.
You're gonna be Julia Guglia anyway.
I was like, okay, so now it's gonna be this whole thing about this like the final game, and so like when it switched over and became like about his personal life again, I love that twist.
I do too.
I loved it so much.
I do too. I completely agree.
Yeah, I was getting kind of settled at that point,
Mhm.
and I was really ready for that change.
Yeah.
I do also really enjoy who played his sister? I'm trying to
Michaela
recall
Watkins.
really-
Yes.
Thank you. I know it was like it's such a small part, but I just loved her as like this steady, and you can tell from the first second that she is that sister who always has to be there, and that she is,
And she's dealt with his shit. Yep.
and she is just absolutely on the edge of it,
Yep.
like from the first second. And I think she just does so well.
I
in
agree.
this.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I always enjoy her, but yeah, she really does the most with a small role. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it was very much, it was the addiction movie. And so it was very focused on Ben Affleck. She had so little interaction. Like the guy at the bar who always walked him home at night.
Glenn Turman.
Like, what?
Glenn Turman is amazing, and I always love seeing him.
I love him too, but I was also like, what? You're just like the dude that's always watching him at the bar.
Right.
Well, he
Like,
helped his dad
he
home,
helped his dad.
which, by the way, another potential throwaway that's not a throwaway, because it's like, oh, your father was also an alcoholic. There we go. It makes so much sense. Yeah.
I just
I
get
feel like that was one of those audience moments.
Oh my god. Well,
Yeah.
the audience we went and saw it with was anyway.
I can't with that.
I can't. I know.
I was
I
just
can't.
like,
It
this
was
is
just
so inappropriate reactions to so many things here.
So many.
but yes. So it sounds like you would both say see it.
I would
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting film on addiction. I think Ben Affleck gives an incredible career best performance. Yeah, I would definitely say see it.
I definitely think that as long as you preface and
Yes.
if you're suggesting it to somebody, that you definitely make sure that they know that it is a movie about addiction.
Right, and not
Then-
a sports movie,
Correct.
which is how they're
Yes.
advertising it.
Correct.
Because, I think the advertising of this is highly questionable as to what you've latched on to.
Yeah.
But that when you actually get there, and if you are expecting a movie about addiction and a very personal film, then you're absolutely going to love it.
Right.
All right.
But what does Evan say?
Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna say don't see
I
it.
feel more middle of the road. Yeah, I would say probably leaning more towards no, but I respect the recommendation.
We respect your dissent. Maybe.
Oh, you're
No.
speaking for both of us?
I know. I was like, that's why I was like, maybe not. I don't know.
I'm a guest, so I'm going to be respectful.
I just wanted to have a circle of respect. So
Sounds like a horrible superpower.
it does sound horrible. And then the lodge, you would say not to see it.
I would
Evan.
say no.
I would say most definitely see it. It's amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Veronica Franz and I can't remember his name. It's something Severin. I love their films. They do creepy children films. They do really unnerving films. Love it. And then Onward, I would say it's not a must see. You can wait to see it, but I would still say see it.
And we have nothing to report about PAX other than we had fun and we went to a panel and we talked about some video games and movies.
But please be on the lookout for Star Fox 2024.
Oh my God, that's right. Kristen, get on that and make that movie happen.
Look, I'm just saying if you need someone to be the puppeteer in that, I volunteer myself.
Yay! You're like, I offer myself as tribute. Right?
I've always wanted to be a Muppet, and there's no better way than to just go out there and do it.
Gotta do it. Gotta make it happen.
Yep.
The best part about that is there's like 300 better ways to do that.
Oh, I know.
To jump into a mega $1 million international.
Yes. I'm making my Muppet debut.
Oh my God.
Now I want to know what your Muppet name would be.
I mean, if this really doesn't if this doesn't get off the ground, I expect this to become like a Patreon like extra feature that we're just going to actually just film the Star Fox movie ourselves.
That would be
And that's like
amazing.
the ultimate Patreon.
Do it.
extra
Do it. Do it.
feature.
Do it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We'll have to use like paper bag puppets or something.
Yeah. Yeah, we could do that.
Got a little low budget there.
So, this has been another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. We are very punchy because it's very late. So, I will say it has been a lot of fun. Thank you, as always, Kristen, for joining us.
I know. I'm so excited you were here.
So excited to be here.
And I've never done a podcast with you, so I was really excited.
I know, right? Well, I was telling Evan this, that I think that the only incarnation of this that I now don't have is you, me, and Dave breaking into Evan's house, recording when Evan's on vacation.
Hey, you never know.
It could happen.
It could happen. So yes, you can find the show all kinds of places, but you can find it at our website, which is spoilerpiece.com. And you can get in touch with us in a bunch of different ways. We're on Facebook. We are on Instagram and Twitter at spoilerpiece. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, and you can give us a call.
At 862-21-PEACE.
Yes.
Like piece of pie, not peace, like world peace.
Yes. Important clarification.
Yes.
You leave a message to the other number, they're going to be very confused.
They won't know what you're talking about. But yes, we definitely want to hear from you. We love
We
your
do.
comments. We love your questions.
Mhm.
Let us know what video game movies you think should happen. Should be adaptations.
Yes. We want to hear all
yeah.
about those.
Yeah.
And if you like the show, please rate and review us on your podcast platform of choice. You can go to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, and that will take you to whatever platform you're in or on or options. You'll get them. And if you really, really like the show, sign up for our Patreon. It's just patreon.com/spoilerpiece. Toss us a couple bucks, and you get to unlock some pretty sweet rewards for just as low as $5 a month. You get to listen to exclusive audio like this week's segment on Tomb Raider. You can
Yeah.
also vote in our polls, and if you sign up for our $10 tier, you can pick movies for us to watch, and we'll talk about them in the exclusive audio
We sure will.
just for you.
We do it for you because we love you.
We do it all for you, patrons.
Yes.
My name is Evan Crean. I am editor for The Independent. I am co-chair of BAFCA, co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living, and you can follow me on Twitter and on Letterboxd as Real Recon.
I'm Megan Kearns. I'm a freelance writer and film critic, editor of Bitchflix, member of BAFCA, and you can follow me on Twitter at OpinionSWorld and on Instagram at TheOpinionS.
And I am happy to be here, always happy to come on Spoiler Piece. I'm Kristen Halbert. I'm a contributing writer at forcesofgeek.com. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at khalbert617.
We're so excited that you came, Kristen. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for joining us.
Oh my God, I can't think of anyone I want to talk about movies more than you guys.
Aw.
Don't tell Dave. Can you hear me in the basement?
Shh, quiet. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.